Was there an initial sort of look? Oh, by the way, second amazing show. Was there an initial look towards the choreography that you wanted to go with, or was it something that Frantic sort of worked on as they went along with the project?
I think we, Vicky Featherstone at National Theatre Scotland, after she saw the show, she said that what surprised her was how we hadn't gone all frantic on its ass. As in, there were big parts of the show which just relied on it being a boxing event. And for the most part, I think that's what we wanted to do with this show. There's a very frantic way of looking at boxing that we chose not to do. Because we wanted a big boxing match as at the heart of the show, knew that would take a long time to put together.
Can I just ask you a question? The guy who would advise on the boxing was here, I know, last week to see the show again.
Yeah.
What was his response, having been away from it and having seen the show, both to you and to the company?
I spoke to you for a bit, didn't I?
Yeah. What did he say?
Really enjoyed it. Everyone gave me notes. No, he's very complimentary actually. He was just talking about the stuff that we spoke away back at the start, so that we'd held on to it.
Did he kind of believe it? Did he
well, he understood the world because he was in sort of helping us create it. He understood that it was to a track and that things had to happen within it. And even though I think, well, this is my personal sort of choice on it, I think that the fight is real, but there's so many surreal moments within it that it actually becomes something else rather than just a boxing match. Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I don't know if you can see through that.
How was he with you?
I think it was good actually. I think it's that thing where, I mean, he said to Eddie at one point, there was one bit where the boxers crossed their hands, and I think it's always that thing where somebody's in such a world where, I mean, this guy has to train people to the minutest detail, and I think it's that thing about, we had him in the room about 3 or 4 times, and actually that's as much as you can, because after that you have to be allowed to have that artistic license with stuff. So there's one tiny bit where Eddie, Vicky and Ryan punch and cross their arms, and he spotted it and said they would never do that. And in some ways you end up in the bar saying, yeah, we know that.
It's not really boxing.
Yeah, that's boxing or whatever that is.
Make sure I continue to train. Thirdly, today's show.
Becoming a cliche.
What was more nerve-wracking, preparing yourself as a boxer or preparing to come on stage? Like, was your main objective to convince them that you're a boxer, or did you get yourself into the, okay, I am a boxer? Do you know what I mean?
We trained like boxers. We trained like boxers for you know, the whole 7 weeks that we were kind of creating the thing. So we actually every day we did have, you know, Kev come in and we got sort of technique sort of classes, and we actually learned how to box. We never actually got the opportunity to fight each other in the real sense, but we did learn as much as we could with, you know, because we can't actually go on and hurt each other every night because it's a long tour, you know, so we kind of had to take it as close to the reality as possible.
Yeah.
You know, but we did train as boxers. So by the time we came to get on stage, I mean, I think all of us felt, you know, pretty competent in the whole style of boxing, you know, so we could pull it off.
How did the whole process work? Like, did you, like when you were creating it, was Bryony like on board? Were you working together to create something, or did she completely write it and then hand it over to you?
We did. We did a week in Scotland where we looked at movements, and Bryony sat and she cried quite a bit. She does. She's from a very moist family. Take that as you will. Then we did 2 weeks, and then she looked at me and said, "That's really out of order." That was. Scrap that on the film. So yeah, we did 2 weeks where we looked at some text stuff and we worked on some character stuff. Then she did 3 drafts up until we started rehearsals, which took place over 5 months. And then with the last show with Bryony, we did 1 more draft during the 6 weeks of rehearsals. this show was, like I said earlier, this show was very difficult for Bryony to write. So she wrote 7 drafts in 6 weeks. So she wrote a lot, and there was a lot. Actually, if I'm really honest, there was a lot of difficult times in the rehearsal process where myself and Scott and Bryony just couldn't figure out how to land very specific parts of the show. So it was we got into quite heated conversations quite a few times on this piece, and I think the three of us learned a lot. Our working process was absolutely, really kind of galvanised by that. But it was that thing like Bryony battled with the idea about creating a show that was about a sense of family, and she really didn't want to do that. And actually, you can't. Because whether you like it or not, a boxing fraternity is about family, whether it's the existing family that's there supporting the people in the room, or whether it's the absence of family that means they're in that room in the first place. And Bryony resisted it and resisted it and resisted it. And actually you have to let a writer do all of those things. That's part of the new writing process, we believe, as a company. That writer needs to be able to go through all those things. And I watched Bryony sail off into some directions that I thought were totally wrong. But it's your job to just be able to let them arrive back at the point where they started and keep nudging them forward. But it was difficult. But she was there the whole time.
And a couple more, yeah, gentlemen, yeah.
Firstly, I thought the show was crap. I was actually just saying that because the cliches on the other side. I was just wondering if anybody actually, if the timing was out any of the nights and anybody did get hurt.
Yes.
It happens quite regularly.
Yeah, well, I got punched in the face tonight. I don't know if anybody noticed that.
No.
Do you, Eddie?
I was
Yeah. Just before the line, nobody hits anybody. I've got landed one right in the chin. Well, we've been fairly. I came off it right. And what you're talking about is me falling off the stage. Right? I got off the stage, but that was in a dress rehearsal. But we've been fairly lucky with accidents. Touch wood. But yeah. I mean, I remember you saying, Stephen, that like most Frantic shows has an injury report book that big, and this one so far has been okay. So yeah, I'm sure tomorrow night.
I was just wondering, did you guys train as actors, and did you do any movement or dance or physical theatre before this, or like how did you come into?
I have no clue about timing. Hey, Stephen. No clue. But you learn rapidly on the spot. I just graduated 7 weeks ago, and I had to learn really, really early on and really quickly about beats and timing because I ignored my dance teacher in dance class regrettably about moving to beats. But yeah, no, I didn't have any idea about I had an idea about physical theatre, but I hadn't actually been involved in physical theatre or on a dance piece at all. So it was quite steep for me. But once you get it, it just falls into place, moving with the rhythms and coming on at beats and stuff.
Answer to your question though, Eddie and Vicky trained as dancers. The rest of us mainly are actors. But like the greatest compliment I think I've had is that people don't really know that. Do you know what I mean? And that, like, I think that's just speaks volumes about what the work that all of us have put in on both aspects. And the other thing is, I don't think. Like, I don't know, I remember having a chat with Stephen about that, and I was like, oh, that crap, I just feel really awkward when we come to the movement part, and he convinced me not to think about it as acting this moment and then sort of dance and movement and think of it as a whole thing, and the whole thing is just acting and moving, you know?
I wondered if as it was devised in the way you've described, when did the music come in? Did the music come, because the music was a whole part of it?
We had a lot of tracks given to us by the band before we started rehearsal, and to be honest, over 6 weeks, a lot of which is trial and error. I played underworld music all the time throughout rehearsal, so there was always an underworld track playing behind, and even things like the warm up with the underworld stuff, and so it's something about just trying to saturate the rehearsal room so that there's an underworld track playing always, and so you just start to link stuff together. And there'd be even things like, I can remember when sometimes it wasn't even my choice. We were talking about the arrested punchers or sexualized punchers stuff, and that was Eddie's suggestion that track was like a muted, somebody saying walk with me, with like a muted sound through it. That was Eddie. I think Scott had a few ideas about tracks, so it's not just my job. But it was just that thing about having the music, and what we asked the band to work on the show, because we always felt that that's their sound was what we wanted the world of the show to be. So in some ways, the thing that we did know was that it would sound like that. That was the only thing we did know. No idea what it would look like or what the characters would end up like. But we kind of knew the world of the kind of soundtrack of it.
Have any of your opinions of boxing changed throughout the project, and will any of you keep boxing?
Good question.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah. Yeah, I never watched it. I'd never be interested in watching boxing, and yeah, as soon as I started doing this, when you know what it entails, then I became a lot more interested, and it's amazing for fitness and losing weight, so I'm definitely going to keep on doing it. So, yeah, but definitely it's changed. It's just so much more interesting when you know what's gone into it, and then you watch a fight. Yeah.
I don't think my opinion about whether I would want my son to go into boxing has changed. So I guess that means my opinion about boxing hasn't changed, but my kind of understanding of the positives about it, I understand now, whereas before it was all negatives. You know, I understand the brilliant kind of love that goes on in these gyms between the trainer and these young boys, and between the boys and girls themselves. And for some of these kids, it might be the only environment, the only situation they're going to experience that in. But I still think the fact that I kind of can't get over is it's always basically poor kids that end up in these gyms boxing, because if I'm honest, well-off kids, middle-class kids have other options open to them. So if I'm really honest, I don't think my opinion about whether I would want my son to do it has changed, but I do realise there are a lot of positives in that story as well.
Can I actually ask, just on that note, leading from the last question, the characters all go through this amazing transformation towards the end, and the female character is really quite a shocking transformation and becomes very non-masculine. I just wondered about that, because it seems like, you know, what's happening now, you know?
Yeah. What's happened? I don't know. I mean, I see it as that she's a very mixed up girl, and I don't think she doesn't know where to put herself, and I think she just tries all these different things to kind of satisfy. And she thinks she's got there at the end, but through that boxing match, she just disintegrates into, I don't know, into a little girl again. She just doesn't know what to do. But I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's transformation from her being a boxer to being having the ring.
Well, I think she realises she can't do it. Like, she's never going to get anywhere with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's never going to get hit. So what? Yeah, and she's got this kind of inner rage inside her, and she doesn't know what to do with it.
It's quite telling though that they end up that the girl who wants to be a professional boxer ends up basically being the sex object in the ring. That's the only place for her, really. And what that does to the character during that last round, when you basically disintegrate, that you can't actually carry it off. You can't cope with it, you know. That's what I've been
But it is more open to women, I think, training how to, you know, no, it's not to do with what you're saying, I'm not like Lorraine. I'd love my son to do it. I think it's a brilliant thing. He's got no interest in it, but I think it's a great thing to take up for all kinds of reasons. Amateur.
Professional and amateur, I was going to say.
Professional is different, and a lot of people don't often die, but people do, you see. The damage, the cumulative damage that's done to people over a sustained period of time doing it, varying degrees of clear brain damage.
I think, you know, going back to everyone's point, I mean, it's, you know, I love boxing. My father loved it, always watched it, and, you know, I can list all the boxers I've seen hurt, you know, the German Clemens and Joe Jones, and, you know, and those fights stick out. They do, and it's hard, and I think it was always a difficult story to tell, but, you know, I think the production tries to kind of show, I think, as true a sense of the world as it can, but in the end, you know, you've got a limited time to do it in, and you have to pick certain elements. I think we've kind of tried to pick a way through that. We're going to have to end now. I'd like to thank you all for staying. I'd also like to thank my brilliant cast and crew who are also waiting, and also thank Tramway Front of House for bearing with us. Thanks so much for staying, and such brilliant numbers and such brilliant questions as well.